Hello guys, my name is Milan Patel. I'm currently pursuing my Masters in Health and Exercise Science at University of Houston Clear Lake. In this video, I will discuss about the phases of sprinting and ideas for speed development. Sprinting can be defined as the ability to run at maximum speed for a shorter duration. Maximum running speed is an important factor for success in many sports like soccer, football, cricket, and many more. An elite 100-meter sprint can be broken down into various phases in order to understand the optimal technique and biomechanics to produce the fastest run. Starting position. Elite sprinters use starting block during short races anywhere between 70 meter and 400 meter in order to gain more power and acceleration at the start of their race. It involves placing the balls of feet on the blocks. The tip of the toes should be just touching the ground and the heels placing back off the top of the block. Once the feet are set, the knees come down and resting on the ground. The hands are then set by measuring an elbow to hand length away from the back, knees, and then placing the hand on the ground just more than the shoulder width. The fingers should be facing outward with the thumb and index finger parallel along the line, making an arch in the middle. It's important then the back should be straight by tightening the abdominal muscles. The head should be aligned by looking down in order to assist in having a straight connection from the head to hips. When the marshal calls out set, this is when the hips rise higher than the shoulders, putting pressure through the balls of the feet. The center of mass should stay over the middle of the body. The athlete should feel as they would fall forward if they were to retract their arms. Head position should not be changed, otherwise, it will encourage the back to round and hips to drop. Driving phase. The driving phase is understood to be the first 10 meters in the race. England Athletics suggests that the takeoff is one of the most important aspects, as this is where 75% of the acceleration is achieved. Arms should be stretched as far as possible. Back leg, that means driving leg, comes through. The front leg slightly scrapes the ground to reduce inertia, and the head position stays down until fully balance the body. Now look at this picture. In the first frame here you can see athlete achieving the triple extension phase. This starts by propelling the arms and flexing the shoulders together. The hip is extended like the knee. This means the more force is able to produce in the takeoff. In the second frame it shows slight elevation of foot before the third and fourth frame shows that the foot scraping the ground, which reduce the gravitational force and moment of inertia that occurs when bringing the leg forward. When the gun goes off, athlete brings his knee up, flexing as much as possible at the hip, knee and ankle joint. It is known as triple flexion. On the other hand, driving leg is fully extended to achieve triple extension, which involves extension of hip, knee and ankle, and arms extend apart each other. Blazwick and his team mentioned that both these movements they exert a high amount of force, which is reinforced by Newton's third law, which states that for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. Now we look at the video of Usain Bolt's technique in the takeoff action and driving phase. This is very similar to which I explained earlier. England Athletics in 2010 suggests that by viewing this video, we can say that the amount of power and force exerted can't be measured from looking at this video. But referring to Usain Bolt's world record time, we can infer he exert more ground reaction force in order to gain more momentum and acceleration to prepare him for the rest of the race. Moreover, we can see that he is able to take a long stride in his first step due to his long levers and the power produced from the back leg. His front leg does not leave the block until he is fully extended. Transition phase. In transition phase, the athletes are reaching peak acceleration and are beginning to strengthen their torso upright and look down the track. In simple terms, the athlete is transitioning from the accelerative angle to a more upright stance for maximum speed. It is one of the shortest phases of a sprint. Speed maintenance phase or constant speed phase. Lehrer suggests this phase can be submaximal, maximal, or supramaximal and is characterized by both the stride length and stride frequency remaining the same over a period of time. This phase is generally achieved between 60 to 80 meter mark in men and 50 to 70 meter mark in women for 100-meter sprint. Top sprinters can sustain this phase over a distance of 10 to 20 meters. In this video, we can see that Bolt's foot contacts the ground under his center of mass. In his ability to maintain high velocity in his upper half allows him to take longer strides, producing more power and propelling himself forward. Deceleration phase. Deceleration phase is the last phase of a sprint technique, which is characterized by a decrease in sprinting speed, usually occurring between the 80 and 100-meter mark in the top sprinters. Velocity begins to decrease on a scale of 0.5 to 1.5 meters per second and it is caused by a central and peripheral fatigue. The easiest way to deceleration and changing direction without coming to a complete stop is to flex the ankles, hips, and knees as each foot contacts the ground. This will lead to more contact time of foot to the ground, which absorb and distribute generated force throughout the body, which allows the athlete to slow down the speed and make a change in direction or come to a complete stop. This is a graph composed by England Athletics in 2010 that shows Usain Bolt's velocity throughout his world recording winning run in Berlin 2009. His maximum velocity comes about 60 meters into the race, that is 6.29 seconds from the start of the race. It shows the breakdown of the phases in his run, at which stage he is at his maximum velocity as a percentage. Moreover, we can say that the speed maintenance phase is quite good because the maximum velocity and at the end velocity is difference is just around 1 meter per second, which is quite impressive. Moreover, Gomez and his team in 2013 suggest that Usain Bolt's mechanical efficiency during running is based on his relative strength, muscle coordination, the optimal frequency of his strides, exceptionally short ground contact time, and extreme length of his strides, which is a consequence of his height. Louis Sims suggests that speed development training grouped as primary, secondary, and tertiary methods. Primary training methods. Lockie and colleagues suggest that free sprint training is a method of training sprint ability without the use of any external equipment and should form the basis of a sprint training program. Free sprint training has been shown to increase speed ability in a variety of population with reported increase in step length and reduce ground contact times. Secondary training methods. Secondary training methods refer to sprint specific training. However, external resistance or assistance is used as an overload. Assisted sprinting is a training method taught to increase maximum velocity. Assisted towing, high speed treadmill running, and downhill running are all assisted training methods. Tertiary training method. Rumpf and his team suggest that tertiary training methods are essentially any training mode used to enhance speed ability that is not sprinting. Benhurst and his team says strength, power, plyometric, and mobility training are all examples of tertiary training modes. Tertiary training modalities can benefit physical performance characteristics such as increase in strength and power production, which in turn may impact sprint ability. In this picture, you can see the sample strength training exercises which could be utilized for the development of acceleration and maximum velocity during different phases of a training year, which is suggested by Bondarchuk and Wild. At last, I would like to mention one important thing, that there are several researches available which suggest that the most common injury associated with sprinting is hamstring injury. Therefore, in a training session, coaches should focus on developing isometric and eccentric strength of hamstring muscles.